Tomorrow morning, you could make the first of 10 decisions that eventually makes you rich. Not 10,000 perfect mornings. Not 30 years without a mistake. 10 decisions. One decision to begin. One to learn something valuable. One to continue when the result is disappointing. One to stop when continuing becomes irrational. One person you decide to trust. One opportunity you almost reject. One risk you take. One risk you refuse. One moment when you reinvest instead of consuming the reward. And one final decision that only becomes possible because you made the previous 9. If we met a wealthy version of you 15 years from now and traced their life backwards, perhaps that is all we would find. 10 moments when everything changed direction. So maybe the distance between your life today and extraordinary wealth is not as large as it feels. Maybe it is only 10 decisions. That sounds like motivational nonsense. The unsettling part is, it might actually be true. Imagine that we can see this successful version of you. We start at the end. You have money, freedom, and control over your time. Then we move backwards through your life. Decision 10 led to the final breakthrough. Decision 9 placed you in the right position. Decision 8 introduced you to the right person. Decision 7 came after a painful failure. And eventually, we arrive back here, at you. Tomorrow morning, when we connect those 10 moments, they form one clean line. A beginning, a struggle, a turning point, and an outcome. You could put the entire journey on a wall. You could turn it into a speech. You could sell it as a 10-step system. And every step would appear to lead naturally to the next. But there is a problem. We cheated. We began with a future in which you had already succeeded. From the end, your life looks like a line. From where you are standing now, there is no line. There is a tree. Suppose your next important decision gives you 4 plausible options. You can begin now. Wait. Choose a different direction. Or abandon the idea entirely. That creates 4 possible futures. Now give each version of you another decision with 4 options. 4 futures become 16. After 3 decisions, there are 64. After 4, 256. After 5, 1,024. And after 10 decisions, there are 1,048,576 possible paths. This is only a thought experiment. Real decisions do not always offer exactly 4 options. They influence one another. Unexpected events create new branches. Other people close some paths and open others. Reality is far more complicated than this model. But that does not make the number less disturbing. It makes the real decision tree even larger. So yes, 10 decisions might separate you from a version of your life in which you become rich. But those same 10 decisions also separate you from more than 1 million other lives. And you only get to experience one of them. Now select the successful path. Color it orange. Then delete everything else. Remove the project that almost worked. Remove the opportunity you never noticed. Remove the person you nearly met. Remove the sensible decision that produced a bad result. Remove the reckless decision that happened to work. Remove every version of you that made nearly identical choices and arrived somewhere completely different. Once those paths disappear, the successful route looks obvious. A rejection becomes the event that forced you to improve. A chance encounter becomes destiny. A risky move becomes proof that courage is rewarded. A period of confusion becomes a necessary chapter in a larger plan. The story does not have to be dishonest. The person telling it may remember every event accurately. But memory does something powerful. It organizes uncertainty into meaning. It turns thousands of possible explanations into one coherent narrative. The path feels intentional because we already know where it ends. After success, luck can look like intuition. Survival can look like strategy. Timing can look like vision. And 10 decisions that could have produced countless outcomes begin to look like 10 steps that were always going to make someone rich. Success stories are maps drawn after the destination has already been reached. They can show you where one person went. They cannot show you every place you might end up. This sounds demotivating. If there are more than 1 million possible paths, perhaps your decisions barely matter. But that conclusion is also wrong, because the branches are not equal. Most of the choices you make today will alter only a tiny part of your life. What you eat for lunch, which video you watch, whether you answer an unimportant message now or tonight. They matter a little, but they usually do not transform the entire tree. Other decisions change what becomes possible for years. Learning something that remains useful across industries, entering a new environment, leaving a destructive one, publishing work that other people can discover, accepting a responsibility, taking on a debt, building a relationship, ending one. These decisions do not merely change what happens next. They change the number and quality of the decisions available after that. Your life may contain thousands of choices, but only a small number of them significantly change the size of the tree. That is the hopeful part. You do not need to make every decision perfectly. The dangerous part is that you rarely know which decisions are important while you are making them. Imagine two identical versions of you. Both make the same decision. Both start the same project. Both work seriously. Both persist for the same amount of time. Then something outside their control changes. One meets a person who provides the missing opportunity. The other never meets them. One enters the market at the right moment. The other arrives slightly too early or slightly too late. One receives enough early encouragement to continue. The other experiences 3 failures in a row and has to stop. The original decision was the same. The result was not. Now reverse the experiment. One version of you makes a careless decision and gets lucky. Another makes a thoughtful decision and still loses. We often judge the quality of a decision by looking at the result. But the result contains information the person did not possess when the decision was made. A successful outcome does not automatically prove that the decision was intelligent. And an unsuccessful outcome does not automatically prove that it was wrong. A good decision is not one that guarantees success. No such decision exists. A good decision uses the information available at the time to create a favorable range of possible outcomes. You cannot control which branch reality chooses, but you can influence the tree from which that branch is selected. And this leads to the most important idea in the entire experiment. The best early decisions may not make you money. They may not look impressive. They may produce no immediate evidence that your life is changing. Their value is that they create access to better decisions later. Learning a useful skill creates projects you could not attempt before. Completing a small project creates evidence that another person can evaluate. That evidence can create trust. Trust can create collaboration. Collaboration can create an opportunity. And that opportunity can create a decision that did not exist when you started. None of those later branches were visible from the beginning. You had to create them. This is why the first step of a successful life often appears strangely disconnected from the eventual result. Its purpose was not to produce the final outcome. Its purpose was to make the next valuable decision possible. The best decisions do not always make you rich. They give you more future decisions. They increase what you are capable of doing. Who is willing to work with you? What information you possess? How long you can continue? And which opportunities can realistically reach you? Wealth may be produced at the end of the chain, but possibility is produced at the beginning. This creates another problem with 10-step success stories. From your current position, you may not be capable of making decision 10. It might not exist yet. You cannot decide to scale something that has not been created. You cannot choose the perfect partner before meeting them. You cannot accept an opportunity that nobody is prepared to offer you. And you cannot confidently select a direction before reality has given you feedback. Decision 10 belongs to a future version of you with different information, different abilities, and different options. Your job today is not to predict it. Your job is to create the conditions under which it can eventually appear. Imagine publishing one small piece of work. Perhaps almost nobody sees it. As an outcome, it looks insignificant, but it produces information. You discover what was difficult, what people understood, what they ignored, what you enjoyed enough to repeat, and perhaps one person does see it. Now a new conversation is possible. A second project becomes more specific. A new branch appears. You did not execute step 1 of a predetermined 10-step plan. You changed the decision tree. You do not make 10 life-changing decisions at once. You make decision 1 to earn the right to see decision 2. But even this idea can become dishonest when turned into simple motivation. Because not everyone begins with the same tree. One person has savings and can survive several failed experiments. Another person has people depending on their income. One possesses helpful relationships. Another must build trust from nothing. One can take a year to explore. Another cannot afford a month without predictable income. One mistake may be educational for the first person and devastating for the second. Both might technically have access to the same decision, but the possible cost of that decision is completely different. Possibility is not the same as probability, and probability is not the same as accessibility. A wealthy future may exist somewhere in your theoretical decision tree. That does not mean every branch leading to it is realistically available from your current position. This is why advice like, just take the risk, can sound profound while saying almost nothing. The size of a risk cannot be separated from the person carrying it. For someone with a large safety net, failure may create an interesting story. For someone without one, failure may remove years of future choices. A useful strategy must account for the life you actually have, not the life of the person giving the advice. So what can you control? Not the perfect path, not every outside event, and certainly not the final result. But you can make decisions that preserve your ability to keep making decisions. First, avoid unnecessary ruin. A choice with an exciting upside may still be terrible if one failure eliminates every future attempt. Second, test reversible decisions before committing to irreversible ones. A small experiment can reveal information while keeping the rest of the tree alive. Third, build things that remain useful across many possible futures. Skills, health, savings, trust, a reputation for finishing what you begin, the ability to learn quickly. These may not point toward one guaranteed outcome. That is precisely what makes them valuable. They work across many paths. And fourth, prefer decisions that teach you something, even when the immediate result is disappointing. An action can fail as an attempt and succeed as information. This is not as dramatic as betting everything on one heroic moment. But heroic decisions are easier to celebrate after they work than to evaluate before they happen. The goal is not to make the boldest choice. It is to make choices that produce meaningful upside without needlessly destroying your ability to try again. You do not need certainty. You need survivable uncertainty. So how close are you, really, to becoming rich? Probably closer than a complete cynic would tell you, and further away than a motivational video wants you to believe. A small number of decisions genuinely can transform a life. A new direction can compound for years. One relationship can open an entire world. One project can produce opportunities you could not previously imagine. One decision to stop can be as valuable as one decision to continue. But you will not know in advance which moments will later appear in the story. The 10 decisions separating you from wealth may exist. They are simply hidden among thousands of decisions that feel equally uncertain today. And they do not form a universal sequence. Your 10 will not be somebody else's 10. They may not even look important while you are making them. You are not 10 correct answers away from guaranteed wealth. You may be 10 generations of better options away from a radically different life. And the only generation of options you can influence directly is the next one. So tomorrow morning, do not decide to become rich. That is not a decision. It is a desired outcome. Instead, make one decision that creates a new branch. Begin the smallest version of something you have only imagined. Learn enough to replace one assumption with real information. Show one piece of work to another person. Enter one environment in which better opportunities are more likely to exist. Stop doing one thing that repeatedly reduces your future options. Take a risk small enough that failure leaves you able to continue. Your first decision does not have to change your entire life. It only has to change what you are able to decide next. Somewhere among more than 1 million imagined futures, there may be a version of you who becomes extraordinarily wealthy. Another version never begins. Another makes nearly every decision well and still encounters bad luck. Another aims for wealth and finds something else that matters more. Most versions live somewhere between triumph and disaster. Messy, uncertain, better in some ways and worse in others. You cannot inspect all of them. You cannot identify the perfect line in advance. but you can keep more good futures alive. You can make failure survivable. You can create information, and you can choose actions that expand rather than quietly shrink the life available to you. You may not be 10 decisions away from guaranteed wealth, but tomorrow, you can make the decision that allows you to see the next one.